At what was a really busy weekend. Today is the basketball hour. We kind of joked about it yesterday on the show. It's like the Lebitard show. They had the local hour where they talked all things Miami, and now they get into everything else. We have the basketball hour here today. We're going to get into what's going on with Malik Brown. He is committed to Syracuse. What does his commitment mean? How is this class of 2022 all shaping up? And Chris Bunch. That's the next unknown now in the Syracuse class of 2022. So we will dive into all things basketball recruiting. That's coming up next on the Locked On Syracuse podcast.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in. This is your Tuesday edition of the Locked On Syracuse podcast. Tyler Aki alongside Tim Leonard. We're going to have some more football stuff later on in the week. In fact, we're going to have more football stuff later on today for you. Today's going to be a 2 for Tuesday. That's what today is. And it's brought to you by rockauto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Check them out, rockauto.com, and tell them that Locked On sent you. So we're going to be putting out 2 shows today. We need to flesh out all of our thoughts basketball-wise. We need to flesh out the rest of what we didn't get to on the first football episode because we only have 30 or so minutes a day, Tim. And you cannot condense everything that we've got to say in 30 minutes right now. So we figured, why not? Let's give you 2 episodes today. Also, thank you so much for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all platforms. That includes YouTube. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. Even if you're already subscribed on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, get us on both. We're giving you 2 episodes, so subscribe to us on 2 platforms today. That's what we're asking for in return here. So let's dive into Malik Brown and what he brings to the Syracuse class of 2022. I don't know about you. I was a little surprised that he decided to commit to Syracuse. I don't know exactly what his path to playing time is going to look like. But again, another one of these project guys that Syracuse is bringing in, and we'll see how it all plays out. But he's the 4th commit in this class of 2022, joining Peter Carey, Kadir Copeland, and Justin Taylor.
Yeah, and I mean, project is a phrase that we use a lot nowadays, and I don't know if it really, like, sometimes it's not a negative connotation to it, but sometimes it feels like it carries that when we're talking about Syracuse recruiting. He's not an elite ranked guy. He's not the JJ Starling or that big fish that we've been trying to get. And this class, probably at this stage, even if they had Chris Bunch, which we'll get to later on in this podcast, is probably not going to have one of those top 50, top 40 guys, unfortunately. But it's still building to be a pretty nice class. And the most important thing that they needed in this class was to add some numbers and kind of catch up on the numbers that they've lost in the last 2 cycles. And when you look at Malik Brown's game, he definitely strikes me as a guy that fits very well into the 2-3 zone. He's a rangy, athletic dude, 6'9", 210, right around there. Hopefully he'll put on some more weight. He strikes me as a guy that needs to figure out how he's going to be a playmaker offensively a little bit, needs to work on his mid-range jumper, but he's going to be a great zone defender right away. And I think he could be a typical 4-year Syracuse forward. And hopefully they get back into having a guy stay 3-4 years, because that's kind of the formula that brings championships.
When you watch his tapes too, a lot of defense, a lot of defensive stuff that I see. Very long 7-foot wingspan. Always like to see that out of your forwards. I think you're right. Defensively, he's going to fit in very nice into the 2-3 zone. Offensively, I think is where, when we use the word project, that's where that word applies. And for good reason, because college basketball and just basketball in general is becoming more and more offensive as the years progress. Just like in football, everything's becoming more and more offensive. You're going to win with offense. Good offenses beat good defenses now. I think we've started to learn that. And that's why you look at him. He's going to have to add that dimension to his game, something offensively. But right now I see a 6'9" guy who's gonna he could pick guys' pockets. And that's not something that you see a lot of with 6'9" guys. And that's what happens when you've got a 7-foot wingspan and you're nimble on your feet.
Yeah, I mean, they use him to press a lot right now for the current team he's on, which is pretty cool because that shows you his athleticism. And I guess I didn't realize how much of a true big he was until I sat down and watched his tape pretty thoroughly. And it got me thinking, we'll talk about Chris Bunch, but for anyone that's worried, okay, what does this mean for Chris Bunch? I think they're just sort of totally different players, and he's more of a power forward. He's maybe even closer than a center than a shooting guard, in my opinion, where Chris Bunch is way closer to shooting guard than small forward. So the way they're rounding into sort of figuring out this class right now, you've got the point guard Copeland, you got the shooting guard Taylor, you've now got a power forward, I'd say, in Malik Brown, and then you could make a case that Peter Carey is that center. I mean, he is 7 feet tall after all, so you kind of have to label him that. Chris Bunch is kind of the missing piece to like a full starting five, which is good to see that they've checked off those boxes.
Looking at some of Malik Brown's other offers here, he's a 3-star guy, grades out to 88 on 24/7 Sports Composite. So his other offers, the other notable interest that he was receiving: Georgetown, NC State, Penn State, Virginia Tech, a bunch of mid-majors liked him. St. John's was after him, TCU, Texas A&M, Wake Forest, another one too from the Power 5 and ACC. One thing that does concern me, though, as he is a Virginia guy, didn't get the Virginia offer. And the reason why I'm a little concerned with something like that is because Virginia is one of those schools that takes on a lot of projects too. And Tony Bennett likes to develop guys that way. And this seemed like one of those guys who maybe could have fit well with what Virginia wants to do, because we know how much they pride themselves defensively. But
Right.
Tony Bennett never extends that offer.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, I mean, he does kind of strike me as a Virginia-type player, and I think Syracuse could take something from sort of modeling after what Virginia has done
Wouldn't
and
hurt.
building up these.
I know I'd like to have a couple of top
Sure.
25s in some ACC championships.
Some regular season success. I know maybe Syracuse, you could argue, has been better in the postseason, and we've had our way with Virginia in a couple of specific games, but heck, I mean, they're getting it done with guys that they've developed into 3-4 year guys. Syracuse, I feel like, used to do that more in the Big East days, and that's what I like about this class. That's the bonus to it. It's building into maybe 4 or 5 guy class that doesn't have a top dog, but potentially these guys are going to be around for a while.
And that's the prayer right now, because like you said, especially in this era of transfers, it'd be nice to have a couple guys who there's continuity on the roster, right? And that's been something that's really plagued the Syracuse team, and a big reason why this class right now is at 4. I didn't think it was going to get above 3. You were always confident that it was, and look at you, you're sitting here in the correct chair today on this Tuesday. But we'll get to Chris Bunch and what all that means in a little bit. Also, coming up next, I do want to evaluate what this entire 2022 class looks like right now. But first, let me tell you about something that's not too fun to talk about. It is SweatBlock. For a few weeks now, we've been telling you all about SweatBlock, these wipes that stop sweat for 7 days, and it seems like people have been listening. We have friends of Locked On who've tried SweatBlock and absolutely love it. Here's one from a Hollywood producer, all right? Straight out of Hollywood, we have a producer who was working on the set of a Marvel movie. Maybe you've heard of it. She was working 18-hour days for weeks in the Atlanta heat. Then she heard about SweatBlock, started trying it, and loves it. No more sweaty production days. She even reports that one of the A-list actors uses it. That's right, Tim.
Okay.
A-list actors
Wow.
in Marvel movies. I'll let your mind wander on who that might be. They stay dry on set and on the red carpet. So stop excessive sweat for up to 7 days. It's doctor-created, doctor-recommended, and dry shirt guaranteed. If SweatBlock doesn't help you stay dry, you will get your money back. Not just for armpits. You can use your chest, back, feet, hands, anywhere. And I mean anywhere that sweats. If you or someone you know that and love that and you care about is dealing with this excessive sweat, you have to check out SweatBlock. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON or at Amazon and CVS.
This episode also brought to you guys by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models out there, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at your home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto today. Rock Auto is a family business. It's been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years now. They have definitely been around the block. Their prices are reliably low for every customer. I know because I use it whenever I need to make some upgrades to my 2008 Jeep Compass that is still humming largely because of rockauto.com. They have everything you could need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. Just visit rockauto.com.
Let's take a look at this 2022 class now, because this was the quote unquote dream class that was supposed to come in. Obviously looks much different than it did once upon a time. So taking the bird's eye view here of Syracuse and their class of 2022, Justin Taylor's the highest rated guy, ranked 74th nationally by 24/7. That's followed up by Kadir Copeland. He's at 147, a 3-star guy. And then Peter Carey is unranked by 24/7 Sports at the moment. So you kind of laid it out earlier. You're kind of touching all your bases here. You've got a point guard in Kadir. You've got a shooting guard, small forward in Justin Taylor. And then you've got a center in Peter Carey. And now you've got Malik Brown heading in as more of that power forward type of guy. It's funny, though. Okay, so this class right now is ranked 34th in the country, 8th in the ACC, but they have not added Malik Brown yet.
Yeah, I don't know why. They're slacking there.
Yeah, I know. Usually, like, I feel like 24/7 has it before the guy even commits, usually.
Right.
Now we sit here, what are we, 3 days removed from the commitment at this point, and we still haven't gotten an update on it. So that's just, I found that to be kind of funny, given what's happening with 24/7 right now. So when you look at this class, do you view it as more of a class of quantity or quality?
I mean, it's probably quantity if I had to pick one, but I mean, Justin Taylor's a really nice player. We beat out UNC for him. Virginia was in the mix. Like, he had a good offer sheet. Malik Brown's offer sheet probably outweighs his rankings. As we touched on, he's in the 200s in 24/7 Sports. And these rankings fluctuate so much. Like, at one point, Chris Bunch was ahead of Kamari Lands. Now he's slightly behind him, and Chris Bunch is settled in that 70 range. If we add him, then you've got 2 top 100 guys. It's sad to say, but we haven't had a lot of quote-unquote top 100 guys recently. So I think they've done a nice job with this class. It's had a lot of ups and downs, and we thought maybe Dior was going to headline it and Kamari was going to headline it. And here we sit with a class that is maybe slightly better than average for Syracuse, but they had to definitely strike quantity in this class. They had to get at least 4 guys, in my opinion. I'd love to see them get a 5th guy because I think they definitely have room for it. And they had to sort of catch up after losing a lot of recruits in the recent classes. So they've done a nice job to piece together a class and fill some needs. The only thing they're missing is that top dog. And I wish they would have gotten that. It's looking unlikely they're going to, but it's still a nice class for what Syracuse is right now.
I'm with you. It's a quantity class for me right now. And here's why I'm frustrated with that, is because it was almost pent up to be this big thing. And it almost feels like a letdown now at the stage that you are in. Adding Chris Bunch or not, it's the class as a whole is going to feel like a letdown. When once upon a time you had Dior Johnson and Kamari Lands, both of which might end up being McDonald's All-Americans. And that's the part that's frustrating to me, is that you say you want to get back to this mountaintop of being one of the elite programs, and you can't even hold on to the guys that once upon a time commit to you. That, to me, it doesn't necessarily say it's a program that's going downhill, but it's just different than what it used to be. And I get what you're saying. They needed to plug in the holes by guys leaving from the last couple of years, but I still am steadfast that I think the transfer portal would have been a better option, because you can get guys with 2-3 years of eligibility in the transfer portal. And I'd rather take the guy who's maybe a little more talented, a little more polished, knows the college game a little bit more, and rely on that and make that part of your quote unquote recruiting class for the year. And again, you don't know what it's going to look like come the spring, but it's a gamble that A, has paid off for Syracuse in the past, and B, while you don't know what it's going to look like, you have a pretty good idea. You don't necessarily know the names and the faces, but you have a good idea of what the quality and quantity is going to look like.
The thing is, though, and we've talked a lot about this, transfer portal versus how many people they should have in this class. I'm like pretty much with you. It's just the more I look into the numbers of where they're at, and when you really focus on, all right, when these guys are sophomores, so this 2022 class, when they're entering their second year, this group of guys, who's going to be left on the team? Like, this whole Syracuse roster right now is mostly upperclassmen. And I started to sort of do the numbers. You can pretty much guarantee Barama, Buddy, Jimmy Boeheim, Cole Swider, all gone probably after this year. You can make some arguments if maybe they stay for another year, but in 2 years' time, they're probably just left with Symir Torrance, Jesse Edwards, and Frank Anselm out of the 9 guys that are the rotation guys. I guess you could count John Bolajak, but for the purpose of this, I don't really.
Benny in. I mean, he is like a 50-50 in this entire.
But that's 2 years, I'm saying. So I don't think Benny's around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think,
gotcha.
Right. If he's I don't think he's a junior at Syracuse. He might go somewhere else if he struggled, and just that could happen. But I don't see it.
He will not be. He will not make it to his junior year at Syracuse either because of success, or he's going to find somewhere else to play.
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is, you look at this, you say, "Oh, 5 guys. That's a heavy class." But maybe another way to look at it is, you've now got 7 guys in the last 3 cycles when you factor in that everyone but Frank Anselm left in the last class, and you only had a 1-person class with Benny. And if we're being honest, Benny's not going to be there for more than 2 years, and 2 years might be even max. And I don't really know what Frank's status is. But like, bottom line is, those 3 guys I just named, Symir Torrance, Jesse Edwards, Frank Anselm. Symir and Frank, or Jesse, excuse me, will actually already be graduated too. They could have the option of leaving. I guess everyone has the option of leaving nowadays. But really, the more I looked into the numbers, the more I realized that, all right, if you have 5 guys in this class, you still have ample room for the transfer portal. And you're also counting the 2023 class when you do that game as well. So they just needed to catch up. They lost a lot of guys that were in their class last year. They only had 1 dude last year, and Benny, who's probably not going to stay for 4 years. So you need to add some 3-4-year pieces here.
But is it adding guys for the sake of adding names? Like, you heard Peter Carey's coach say something during his recruitment. We're not sure if he's capable of playing at the level of Syracuse and in the ACC. And maybe the coaching staff sees something and wants to take the risk on that sort of project there. I get that. It's their team. It's their players. They've been around the game longer than the two of us. We can put our ages combined. But I've also seen how the transfer portal works and all the success stories that have come out of it with this program.
But are they success stories for Syracuse, right?
Yeah.
Because I still think I still think it's
Elijah Hughes.
Elijah Hughes is different. The reason why I think he's different is because he came in and he learned the zone for a year. The part that scares me about the transfer portal is these guys that come in, we seem to just not have a good zone defense, or they seem to not grasp the zone. Alan Griffin was still trying to figure it out in March Madness play. Even John Gillen, he's probably the biggest success story of a guy that came in as a grad transfer, didn't sit at all, and was a transfer for us recently. But he wasn't great in the zone. I guess that's because.
But here's where I would push back on that, is that I feel like all of these guys too were not great defensively to begin with either. Even like in a man-to-man scheme, I don't know how good they were to begin with. So
right,
we'll see. I mean, I get that, but at the end of the day, what did we talk about earlier? Offense is what's going to be something that wins. Like, we can pick and prod at that 2017, 2018 team that didn't go to the tournament. At the end of the day, that team, if you put them into the modern day of college basketball, where a lot more analytics and stuff are used in the tournament and the committee process of picking NCAA tournament teams, that team's probably going to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, but the great Syracuse teams have good defenses. I get what you're saying. Offense has become more of a thing, and we've definitely leaned into that more, 3-point shooting and everything like that. But what really makes these great Syracuse teams and what makes them succeed in the tournament is when they come together. And I just worry that, okay, if we're adding a bunch of guys.
Also, the change in basketball it's happened pretty much since Steph Curry joined the league. I think that's where you see the turning point. And as a result, we've seen the offensive-minded teams put together these runs, go out and do some really, really fun stuff in college basketball, have regular season success, have tournament success. And that's why I think offensively, the Syracuse teams of the early 2010s, they were part of that, right? Like, they were defensive-minded teams that also had really good offenses too, but defensive teams, they locked down, they ran the 2-3 zone to perfection. But also, you look at the other components of it is now it's going to be offense that wins these games for teams. And I would rather key in on some offensive things. Plus, let's not forget this, all right? How much longer is this program going to be running 2-3 zone? Full time, at the extent that it is right now. How much longer is it going to be running 2-3 zone? We don't know. I mean, you're talking about a guy in Malik Brown who, by the time he gets to his junior and senior year, they might not be running the 2-3 zone anymore.
I'd like to think that Boeheim will have his way and try and continue the 2-3 zone even when he does leave. And it seems like he has no intention of leaving while Malik Brown is there. The other thing is, though, look at the Final Four from last year. Houston, defensive-minded. Baylor goes on to win it. I know Gonzaga was more offensive-minded, but maybe that was part of the reason they struggled against Baylor. I just look at, all right, what has gotten it done recently? And a lot of these teams, the UNCs, the Villanovas, they just do it by having guys that have been in their program, in their system for 3-4 years. They've learned it. They're experienced. They're reliable as veteran guys. And I worry that if Syracuse leans into the transfer portal and does that, and they're not building up these 2-3 year guys, they're not having a Kadari Richmond stay and learn and grow in sort of the Syracuse system, then maybe they're never going to be cut out for that formula. I still think that matters a lot.
You want to bring up Houston and Baylor. I mean, those are two teams that were led by transfers.
Sure, but it's different with the 2-3 zone, right? It's a unique system to incorporate a guy and say, all right, Alan Griffin, you have all the makings of being a good man-to-man defender, but here you are. We're going to put you in the 2-3 zone. Let's see how you do. And that's why he wasn't playing in the tournament. He was great offensively. He had some bad shots, obviously, but he just couldn't learn the principles of the zone.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We're going to get into Chris Bunch now, because this is the next topic, and maybe even the last topic in terms of high schoolers and what Syracuse is going to bring in for this 2022 class. We'll do that in just a second. But first, let me tell you about the best place to do college daily fantasy. It is Prize Picks. If you haven't heard about it, boy, do we've got something for you here. They are the leader in college sports daily fantasy, and they offer more college football props than anyone in the world. And they offer all the star players of the Power 5, as well as mid-major players that you may not have even heard of before. Prize Picks has any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. And all users that deposit and use our promo code LOCKEDON will get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. You pick 2 to 5 players with an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times any entry. It's just you versus the projections. So use the award-winning app on the Apple App Store or Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. So don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON to go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. So looking into Chris Bunch here, okay, he moved up his commitment date. He is now going to be committing on Thursday. As
we needed more to talk about this.
I know, exactly. As if he didn't want to create some more traffic for this week here on the show. But so he's going to now commit on Thursday. We'll have a full fleshed out breakdown of his commitment on Friday. But did that mean anything to you? Him moving up his commitment. He was supposed to commit on Halloween, which I believe, is it already Sunday? Is that no? Okay, so it's like 2 weeks. It's a week from Sunday is Halloween. So he moved it up to Thursday. Did the movement just say anything to you?
I don't know. I mean, I guess if anything, it's not a great sign, maybe, because it comes on the heels of Malik Brown. But at the same time, like I said earlier, the more I dug into Malik Brown, it's not even remotely close that they're going to be doing the same stuff at Syracuse. Like, I know they're both forwards technically, and they'll both probably play that part of the 2-3 zone, but offensively, they're entirely different players. And we still don't really have like a true bucket getter in this class. You could argue maybe Justin Taylor develops into that one day, but that's sort of Chris Bunch's role. And I still think there is a lot of room for him to succeed here. So everything to this point has said Syracuse is in a very good spot to land Chris Bunch. Then you see this stuff, and I think it's just a matter of maybe he decided, like, I want to go trick-or-treating. Like, who knows why he moved it up, right?
Yeah, I think the movement says something. I think it says he's not coming to Syracuse, if I had to guess. And I really don't think this staff wants 5 guys in the class. And Chris Bunch,
they definitely want 5 guys. Why wouldn't they? I just ran through the numbers.
I know you did, but what did we hear from Goody? When Goody would come on this show all the time, and God bless him, he's doing fantastic work on the NFL side of things with the Athletic right now. So he's not coming on the show anymore to drop all this.
He says he still listens, though. So Goody, text us if you're listening.
Yeah, he does. So, Goody, text us if you're listening. But what did he always say? He said this program and this coaching staff wants to use the transfer portal, and I don't think you can use the transfer portal as much if you're going to bring in classes of 5 guys.
Again, though, it's 7 guys over 3 years.
But it's hollow promises that you're now making to these players, because then guess what? You've got all these other players that are leaving. What's the point of recruiting guys if there's not going to be space for them on the roster?
I really think the numbers are there. And this is, I don't know, we talked about this a lot, but again, I ran through the numbers, like Torrance, Jesse Edwards, Frank Anselm. When these guys are sophomores, that's who's maybe still left. I don't think Joe Girard's there. I don't think Benny's there. Those 4 guys I mentioned that are probably leaving after this year aren't there. So you've still got tons of space to add dudes in the transfer portal. Not to mention, the way I view the transfer portal is guys are going to leave and guys are going to come in. It's almost like an exchange of a trade that we saw this year. There's no doubt in my mind that even if Syracuse has a great year this year, someone is going to be unhappy. Someone is going to take advantage of this role and leave. And I don't know who it's going to be. It might be Joe Girard. It seems crazy that it would be, but I mean, look at how football has gone. Tommy DeVito's out. Taj Harris is out. Jarvion Howard. Like, we have called that at the beginning of the year. So guys are still going to leave, which is still going to open up spots. And I think the numbers are still there, even if you add a 5-person class, just because they didn't really have any guys in the last couple classes.
I just don't think the wholesale, like we've seen mass exodus from Syracuse.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think the mass exodus is happening anymore. I think that was a trend that was probably reserved for the last 2 years. And it's something that's going to start to calm itself down a little bit at Syracuse. So I just don't think that, the staff wants a 5-person class. Given the way.
Why are they going after Chris Bunch then? I mean, they definitely want
because they went after him a long time ago. Like,
but they're still they would give up.
Years.
Right. But
maybe they
brought him on a visit 2 weeks ago when they probably knew what Malik Brown's situation is. I think if they don't get Chris Bunch, they might still even go after someone else. Like, it's pretty clear that they went into this class. And I mean, it's getting late in the process here, but I really just see 5, and maybe that means they add someone in the transfer portal. I don't know, but I really see them adding 5 guys in this class. And I think Bunch is still a realistic possibility. I think it's basically down to him and Mike Hopkins in Washington, or Syracuse in Washington.
Oh, there he is again. Mike Hopkins popping up on our radars like he always does around this time. No, I mean, I just don't really see, listen, I would love Chris Bunch. I just don't want it to be at the cost of some of these other guys. Like bringing in Chris, if I had my pick of the 5 guys, if we were going to throw Chris Bunch into this mix, okay, Chris Bunch is making my cut of 3 guys in this class that I want.
Sure.
Chris Bunch is making the cut of guys that I want on this roster. I just don't know. Okay, can Jim Boeheim really walk into these living rooms and say, yes, like and lay out his entire plan for recruiting and still think that these kids are going to get playing time in his program down the road when you're bringing in 5-person classes? I
think he can.
And guess what? Numbers. Because none of these guys, in terms of NBA, like it's one thing for Coach Cal to go into living rooms and say, I can bring in 5 guys, because guess what? All 5 guys are leaving next year. It's another thing for Jim Boeheim to do it, because I would guess none of these 5 guys that would come into this class are going to the NBA.
Maybe not. And that,
in fact, I wouldn't say any of them are going after 3 years.
Yeah, which like Chris Bunch is a good player though. He's a top 75 player. We always want.
Listen,
those guys.
I would want Chris Bunch on this roster. I just don't know if the space is there.
The space is there. That's what I'm telling you.
The space is not there because of the transfer portal. It's not going to be there.
Well, there's a reason why they're recruiting him. They've done the numbers, and you can't say that it's just because they did it 2-3 years ago, because they've been after this kid hard. Like, they've been going to his high school games. He just came for another official visit. Then he announced his sort of decision time frame right after that, which is what made me sort of initially optimistic. So we'll see. Knock on wood, we get him. And I think 5 is the perfect number for this class. And
maybe I should rephrase it. Okay. I think 5 is a stupid number to bring in. I think it's stupid to bring in 5 guys, because I think you're doing a major disservice to guys like Carey, to guys like Malik Brown, that are probably on the lower end of the spectrum of the guys that you're bringing in, because the path to playing time just simply isn't going to be there. Why are you bringing in men? Well, why not let them peruse other options at places that probably are going to offer them a lot more playing time?
Because I think they understand, okay, we're not the highest rated guys, but we can go to Syracuse. We can develop for a year or 2. And then junior, senior years will probably be starters, and there will be playing time for them there.
But will there be? Because what happens when you bring in a transfer in 2024? What happens when you bring in a transfer?
Again, like the numbers just, I mean, I've said it 3 times. These are the 3 guys.
And guess what? The transfer numbers are going to come in. How many transfers came in this year? There were 3 this year. They're going to continue to come in year after year after year. This program loves transfers. They bring them in every single year.
That's great. So then that gets us to 5 guys. And I don't even know if Jesse Edwards is still going to be there in 2 years, plus 5 guys. And this is when they're sophomores, so they still have time to develop. But we're still like not even getting to the scholarship limit, even if they bring in 3 transfers and have a 5-person class and then have like 2 dudes in 2023. That still
And
gets
they
us
haven't
to like
even been
12
to the
guys.
scholarship limit the last couple of years either. So
Yeah,
it's not like they have to hit that quota.
Right, but
Jim
they want to
Boeheim
hit
might be fine
7
having
or
10
8.
guys.
I just think the idea that bringing in 5 guys removes the possibility of transfers doesn't take into account just how far behind they are numbers wise here and how many guys are upperclassmen on this team that are leaving in 2 years.
I've seen the faith that this program has had in transfers the last couple of years, and I don't see why they wouldn't go back into that well. But we'll continue to hash this out throughout the year. It's one of our big points. This might be our biggest.
This
point
is
of
great.
contention.
I love it. We never argue.
2022 is our biggest point of contention on this show. How many guys should they bring in? I wanted this thing capped at 3, and now we're by Thursday it might have 5. I don't think it will, but we'll have to wait and see.
Let me ask you this before we get, and we've gone long, but are you okay with 7 guys in 3 years? Is that fine?
That's not the realistic part of it, though.
But
you think
why isn't it? Why is it different?
In 3, you said in 3 years?
In the last 3 cycles, this would make 7 guys.
So the last 3 cycles, they'll have 7 guys from the recruiting cycles on the team. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, well, then why does it bother you? That's what they're getting to if they go to a 5-person class.
Okay. I would rather have the transfers on the team. I like the way the transfers have played. They're more college basketball ready, and they start games for this team. I just think they've been better players. Like, all right, look at the 7 guys, the 7 recruits. Okay, like how much has paid off? Buddy Boeheim.
I mean, look, we could play the transfer game. Geno Thorpe didn't work out. Alan Griffin gone after a year. But
I would say Alan Griffin worked. I would say Alan Griffin worked. I would say Andrew White worked. John Gillen worked.
But they didn't make the tournament. And that's because they never gelled
all of those guys. I think all of these guys have come in and worked for the most part, whereas some of these recruits haven't hit because they haven't been ready. They've taken too long to develop. And then by the time, and now you get into this era now, they're gone. They're gone.
Yeah, well, and that gets into Boeheim should just be playing Kadari Richmond and those guys more so that they stay, which is a whole nother topic. But you shouldn't look at it as 5 guys in this class. You should look at it as 7 guys over the last 3 cycles, which is a totally normal number.
But
for high school
it's not
recruiting.
7 guys in the last 3 cycles.
It is. Why isn't it?
Because you brought in Cole Swider, you brought in Jimmy Boeheim, you brought in Samir Torrance.
But you lost like Quincy, and you lost. I can't even think of all the guys. Robert Braswell. I mean, you lost so many guys that it's like they
who have you lost?
Got back to
where
they were.
Recruits. So why not? Why are you even wasting your time trying to recruit all of these different guys when you can just go to the transfer portal year after year? That's the thing. It feels like a lot of this is a futile exercise with recruiting some of these lower level guys. That's my big frustration with it.
And again, my big frustration is what I'm trying to say is you can still go to the transfer portal even by having that 5-person class.
I really don't like. You're going to go to the transfer portal because you're going to be filling the holes that's left by Peter Carey or that's left by Maliq Brown or that's left by Kadir Copeland when they transfer out at some point. That's the thing. I don't get spending and using all this time and effort for some of these guys. You should be committing more of that time and effort to guys like Kamari Lance, Dior Johnson, and some of these upper echelon guys that have been on Syracuse's radars now for these past couple of years. So this remains our biggest argument that we've had on the show. And we will continue to hash it out. Thursday might even get a little bit spicier too when we do know the answer of whether or not Chris Bunch is coming to Syracuse. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Syracuse podcast. Go make Locked On ACC your second listen today, or go make us your second listen today. Because guess what? We're coming out with another episode in a little bit. We're going to have everything football. We've got some stuff with, what do we get into on the football show today? More Tommy DeVito stuff, more coaching stuff.
Dino's decisions, analytics.
Shout out to Daily Orange because Roshan Fernandez asked a great question that we are going to dive into on how Dino Babers uses analytics. That's coming up on the football show. So stay tuned for that. For Tim, I'm Tyler. We'll talk.